Hello, everyone. Today, we're going to analyze the American science fiction and action thriller Source Code. The movie starts with US Army pilot Captain Colter Stevens waking up on the Metro commuter train going into Chicago. He is disoriented and looks confused as he wakes up. The person sitting opposite him calls him Sean and starts conversing with him as if they're good friends. Her name is Christina Warren, but he doesn't recognize her. He looks around the train, confused, and cannot recollect anything or see any familiar faces. He tells Christina that he doesn't know her, and that his name is Captain Colter Stevens. As his last memory, he's flying a helicopter for the US Army in Afghanistan. He excuses himself and goes to the washroom. Once inside, he checks his reflection in the mirror and sees someone completely different. Colter is shocked. He checks his wallet and sees the picture of the man in the mirror, a school teacher named Sean Fentress. Confused, Colter comes out of the toilet. Christina is waiting for him outside. He tries to tell her that he isn't Sean. Christina looks at him as if he's lost his mind, but tries to calm him down, and all of a sudden the train explodes. Colter awakens in a dimly lit cockpit, hearing a female voice telling him, "This is a beleaguered castle," and to acknowledge the transmission. Colter is more confused now. Although he is in his body this time, he's locked in a small, dark space with a big screen in front of him. A female calls him by his name, Captain Colter Stevens, and immediately asks about the train's explosion and all the details. When he wants to know her name, she states he already knows her. To refresh his memories, the woman reads him some lines while accompanying visuals appear on the screen. Suddenly, Colter starts remembering parts of the training and repeats what he'd heard before. She then asks him if he remembers her name, and Colter says, "Your name is Goodwin." Goodwin states, "Welcome back, Captain." She again asks who bombed the train. Colter states he has no idea. Finally, Goodwin tells him that he'll go back inside the train and that he has 8 minutes again to find out the bomber. Colter wants to know if his team is aware that he's here and is keen on talking to his father, but Goodwin does not respond to his questions and sends him back into the train, where he has 8 minutes before it explodes again. Colter is back on the train, and Christina is again talking to him once he wakes up. Colter starts thinking that he's on some visual mission. He activates a timer, starts looking around for the possible bomber, and jumps over a guy keen on knowing how long the train will take to reach Chicago. Christina tells Colter that he's a well-known comedian from a show. Colter looks around the train, searching for something out of the ordinary. Colter notices that the vent has been tampered with and finds the bomb there. Colter leaves the bomb as he sees it, gets back into the compartment and tells people that he is transit security and that there's been some security breach, so they must stop using all of their electronic devices. When one of the guys refuses to switch off the laptop, Colter punches him. Christina is surprised by this behavior, and before they can have more conversations, the train explodes while passing another train, killing everyone aboard again. Colter is back in the dimly lit cockpit. Goodwin immediately asks if he found the bomb, but Colter is keen to know where he is and more details about his current mission. Colter thinks he was in Afghanistan just 2 days before, but Goodwin says he's been with them for the last 2 months. He's still confused and doesn't want to give any answers until he knows exactly what is happening. Goodwin calls her boss, Dr. Rutledge, and takes permission to provide some details to Colter. Goodwin informs him that at 7:48 a.m. that morning, a bomb exploded outside Chicago, killing everyone on board. Sean Fentress was on the train, was one of the victims killed that morning. Colter is entering the train being Sean every time he gets into the mission. Goodwin informs that the bomb was the first attack of a series of explosions and that they're trying to stop future bomb explosions. Colter tells her where he found the bomb and what detonator it operated with. Goodwin tells him to get to know the passengers and concentrate on anyone nervous. She tells him that he has 8 minutes to get in before he blows up again. He awakens again in the same conversation with Christina. Coulter notices a guy coming out of the washroom a little stressed and suspects him to be the bomber. Coulter follows him and makes Christina also get off the train with him. Coulter tells her to wait outside the station as he follows the guy inside the washroom at the platform. Coulter can hear him getting sick in the bathroom, and the guy gets uncomfortable with Coulter following him, and he goes back to the platform. Coulter follows the guy and joins him at the bench. When Coulter starts interrogating him and gets into the fight, he checks his bag and finds nothing suspicious in his bag. While they're scuffing, the guy pushes Coulter onto the railway tracks. Coulter doesn't get up in time and is hit by an oncoming train. He wakes up again in the dimly lit cockpit, but this time it is different. He cannot connect with Goodwin. He tries calling her name and even getting out of the capsule, but all in vain. The place starts feeling cold and begins shutting down. The man working with Goodwin tells her that Coulter is in trouble. Then they both go to see Rutledge, who gets involved in fixing the situation. Meanwhile, Coulter finds a toolkit and manages to restart the power in the capsule. He begins hearing distorted voices as Rutledge is sitting down on Goodwin's computer. Coulter is able to get through at last and gets to talk to Dr. Rutledge. With their discussion, we know that Rutledge is the boss who invented the capsule and called the project Source Code. Coulter informs that he saved one passenger, Christina. Goodwin tells him that saving people on the train is outside of his mission. Coulter insists that Christina survived, but Dr. Rutledge explains that she survived only in the source code. Dr. Rutledge informs that source code is not a time travel machine, but something more similar to time reassignment. He can only go back to the last 8 minutes of Sean's life and relive the parallel reality. Sean's body was selected for Coulter because of their compatibility in terms of gender, body size, and synaptic maps. Dr. Rutledge informs Coulter that if he can find who bombed the train, the second attack might be prevented. Before they send him back, Goodwin tells him about a handgun he can find on the train. She authorizes him to use every force necessary. Coulter wakes up again on the train with Christina talking to him. He talks to her very confidently. Coulter looks for the gun and finds it exactly where Goodwin told him it will be. Unfortunately, the ticket collector catches him getting into the safe. Coulter points the firearm at the ticket collector, and the second person from the train electrocutes Coulter, and he faints. When he wakes up, he sees Christina next to him, asking what he's doing. He asks for a phone to call his dad, while Christina is still processing the whole situation. The bomb explodes on the train, and Coulter wakes up in the cockpit. Coulter has had some strange visions involving Christina. He tells Goodwin that the gun wasn't the best idea, and that he wants to speak to his dad, but she brushes him off, saying that she will try to do that. Coulter asks her how he's doing and wants to measure his performance. He asks her if she has ever been on the mission, and Goodwin states she has never been on the other side of source code. While talking to Goodwin, he gets a glimpse of her shirt, gets the department name Goodwin is working for. Goodwin doesn't waste any more time. She assures him that this will end soon. She assures him that he's doing good and sends him back on his mission. Coulter is back on the train and he writes down the name of Goodwin's department. When Christina approaches him, Coulter asks her to look for his friend that disappeared in Afghanistan and gives her his real name to search. Suddenly, he becomes suspicious of a guy talking on the phone. He goes over to him and searches through his bag. Coulter notices that a woman has a bag from an army medical center and goes up to her to inquire about Goodwin's department. She reveals that it's a department in Air Force. Coulter asks her for a phone and calls Air Force Base. He asks for Dr. Rutledge and tells the operator to inform him that Captain Coulter Stevens is calling. While waiting for the doctor on call, Christina finds him and tells him that the friend he asks for to look for was killed in Afghanistan months ago. He is in shock, and before he can process the news, he hears Goodwin's voice, taking him through the mnemonic exercises as he wakes up in the cockpit. Coulter immediately asks Goodwin if he's dead. He informs her about the article he saw online before he came back. Goodwin tells him that he needs to focus on the train and everything else is irrelevant. Coulter insists on knowing more, and Goodwin tells him part of the truth. She says that part of his brain is still active, but that his body is a manifestation. She confirms that the capsule is also a manifestation and doesn't disclose anything more. Dr. Rutledge says that they need to send him back to the train so that he can prevent another attack. Coulter is still in disagreement with the way the source code works and tells Doctor that he called him from the train that morning. The doctor informs him that he didn't receive the call and that even if he did, it would have been a different reality. Dr. Rutledge tells him that any other soldier would have loved the opportunity more preferable than death, having the possibility to continue serving their country. Coulter fights back, stating that for many soldiers, one death as service is enough. Rutledge promises Coulter that he will let him die if he finishes the mission before sending him back into the train. Goodwin proceeds, sending Coulter back on the train over and over again with no success on the train and no rest period in between. Coulter finds himself in a very difficult position. He says that he can't do it. Dr. Rutledge manipulates him by stating he is a hero. Even Coulter's father thinks so, and he plays an audio recording of his father giving an interview after his death, feeling sorry that they never really understood each other. Coulter tells Rutledge to send him back in. Coulter is back on the train and heads towards the bomb, and takes the detonator phone out of it and calls the only phone number, which is in called log. A man answers as Coulter moves through the train. He tells him to turn around. The man in front of him turns to look back. Coulter sits next to him and threatens to kill him with a gun, saying that he can't kill anyone. But the man swears that he was talking to his wife, so he makes him call the phone again. Suddenly, another phone rings outside the train, and Coulter sees a man holding the ringing phone. Coulter apologizes and runs outside and follows after the actual bomber. He sees him putting the wallet back on the train, finally knows his name is Derek Frost. Coulter jumps off the running train and follows the bomber into a white van and goes up to him. He shows Derek the phone, but he pretends that he doesn't recognize it. Then the bomber proceeds to show him the second bomb inside the van, revealing his real personality. Coulter gets into the van to inspect the bomb and asks him where his next target is. However, Christina shows up and Coulter is distracted for a second. The bomber, utilizing the opportunity, shoots both of them. Derek informs the dying Coulter that the world is hell and that it needs to be rebuilt, and for rebuilding, it needs to be destroyed. The bomber gets in the van and leaves them there. Within a few seconds, the bomb in the train explodes regardless. Coulter transitions back to the capsule. Immediately as he comes back, he tells Goodwin and Dr. Rutledge about the bomber and states his name as Derek Frost. He confirms that the second bomber is radioactive. Rutledge and Goodwin congratulate him and say that his mission is over. Before they leave him, he asks to be sent back to try to save the people before he dies. Dr. Rutledge asks him to consider his requests to be taken off life support. Meanwhile, the army arrests Derek Frost before he can detonate the second bomb. Rutledge gets validation from his superiors about his project. Goodwin returns to talk to Coulter. Coulter asks her if she knows that Dr. Rutledge is never going to let him die. He talks about the possibilities of parallel realities and what different versions of people might be like there. Goodwin tells him that he cannot alter the past, but Coulter insists that she's wrong. She asks her if she would like it if she got to make changes in life and begs her to go back one last time and try without approval from Dr. Rutledge and then switch him off. She has some trouble deciding. It takes time to think. She goes ahead and decides to let him in one last time and confirms to switch him off after 8 minutes. She thanks him for the service and bids goodbye. Coulter is back on the train for the last time. He asks Christina out for coffee, and she very gladly accepts it. She tells him that she's been waiting for him to ask for a long time. Coulter goes to the toilet, gets into the vents, and removes both detonators from the bomb. Then he steals the conductor's handcuffs. At the other end, while the source code is active, Rutledge gets more good reviews from his superiors. As Goodwin walks into his office, he tells her to wipe Coulter's memory and prepare him for a new source code. Dr. Rutledge has no intention of letting him die. Goodwin looks at him in disapproval. Back at the train, Coulter stops Derek from going out of the train and handcuffs him to a bar. He shows him the phone and calls the police, telling them everything about Derek and the radioactive bomb in the van. Coulter takes his phone and leaves, and there he sends an email to Goodwin from his phone and calls his dad. Coulter tells him that he's a friend of his son, Stephen Coulter, and that before he died, he wanted to say that he was sorry and he loved him. They have an emotional call. Meanwhile, Goodwin goes to the chamber where they are keeping Coulter's body. This is the first time when we see the real body of Coulter, which is in terrible condition from the war wounds. Rutledge gets a call that Goodwin is with Coulter's body. He knows that she's up to something and has locked the door. He tries to get in, but Goodwin refuses to open it. Dr. Rutledge asks the building security to unlock the door. Goodwin, as promised to Coulter, is just waiting for time to finish 8 minutes so that she can have him off life support. Coulter pays the comedian some money to make everyone laugh, unsure of the results by the end of 8 minutes. He just wants to see a smile on their face. Coulter's heart starts pounding when it's his final minute. He asks Christina what she would do if she had less than a minute to live. And she says that will make those seconds count. Coulter kisses Christina, and at the other end, Goodwin sees that 8 minutes are up, and she removes the life support to end the life of Captain Coulter Stevens. The security runs inside to stop her, but it's already late, and they just see Coulter's dead body. At the other end, it looks like time has just stopped on the train, and the explosion never happens. Coulter realizes that the bomb did not explode, and everyone on the train is alive. He knows that he was right all along. The parallel universe exists, and he is able to continue his life in the parallel universe as Sean. He asks Christina to take a walk to the Chicago Bean Monument, and Coulter realizes that the visions he had when transitioning were of that same moment.